Hello. Good morning. There we go. Forgot about the microphone. Hey, morning, folks. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat. Hope you're all awesome and well. You probably weren't hearing any of the music. I was boogieing away here, and I don't think any of you heard it. But anyway, there you go. Good to see you, folks. A few of you are up and at it already, which is awesome. Kevin, all the way from Florida, mate. Good to see you as usual. Andrew's in the house as well. Aaron's here. Tim, morning, mate. Facebook user, somebody behind the veil. Chris, good to see you, mate. Jeff and Bradley, and Jeff. Hope you're well, folks. Good to see you. As we always like to do a little warm-up, a quick hello. Jason Witten's my name. Most of you know that, but if you're new, say hello. Let us know what you're doing, what you're up to. This is where we hang out each morning and have what we call a Wealth Coffee Chat. Bit of a conversation about property investing, the trials, the tribulations, the celebrations, the tips, the techniques, the ideas, the pontifications. Anyway, there you go. Lots to discuss in the world of property. Certainly when the media get hold of the fear and ignorance they like to perpetuate, there's plenty to talk about as we go along. But welcome along, folks. Good to see you here. Today, I thought we might talk about a little something. I had a conversation with someone the other day about the idea of, we all desire, we all have aspirations and intentions of having our property portfolio create a cash flow that we can use to replace some or all of our income in the future. Now, put that in the, let me know in the chat. Give me a yes in the chat if that's your intention. The idea that your investments, your properties, you're desiring them to, produce some income, some tangible, positive cash flow in your pocket, real usable cash flow income weekly for you as an investor in the future. Let's talk about that. And I want to talk about that today. Brad's going, yep, that's me. Same with Andrew. We'll talk about that today because when we look at residential real estate, you have to tune it up a little bit to make that occur in the way we all think. Often residential real estate has a lower income profile than, let's say, commercial or industrial or other things. But does that make residential less superior? No, I think it has a better profile than the others personally, especially for us as passive investors. But you need to tune it up a little bit. Let's talk about that today. And I want to sort of maybe, put some detail around that and, chew the fat, have a conversation, have a talk. So that's the idea. We might get into it today. But let's talk about the ways residential property pays. That rhymes. There you go. How does residential property, 4 ways that a residential property, a resi property pays? Okay. Now, chuck it in the chat if you know what they are. This might be a little bit of a trick question, but give it a whirl. Give it a whirl. I know many of you will get most of it, if not all of it. But let's talk about the 4 ways it pays. All right. There's 4 ways that a property, and it's probably any property, but let's talk about residential, a buy and hold residential property, investment property, pays us, all right, as we go along. And, a few of them are going to be pretty straightforward, you would think. Pays us, and I'm going to talk about, the ways that the property gives us the ability to create income. Now, above the line is pretty straightforward, right? What are the 2? Yep. Growth in equity, cash from the rent. Yeah, perfect, Tim. So rent, pretty straightforward, folks, isn't it? Yep. The rent comes in and you get real dollars. And we'll talk about the profile, or what I call the income engine, in a minute. But rent, it comes in. It's very reliable. And it comes in, weekly. And, pretty happy with that. Now, depreciation in the form of tax deductions or offsets, which puts money in your pocket. Now, there are those who like to argue with me and say, oh, that's not real. And, you got to pay it back when you sell. And I'm like, yeah, you do, but don't bloody sell. That's the point of this thing, folks, right? So keep the damn thing, turn it into income. And that tax depreciation, if you don't think it's real, I'm happy to take all of your tax deductions if you don't think they're real, folks. Give them to me. They're real. They put real cash in your pocket, or real cash flow in your pocket. And yes, you got to keep track of it. Yes, you got to make sure that you use it for good. I always say to people, any of the tax that you get back goes in your buffer, your offset account, and it's used for maintaining the property. You shouldn't use it as cash flow to buy beer and Skittles, folks. All right? That's sort of the first 10 years, really, of your property's life. You should be reinvesting the income that you create from it, positive or negatively geared after tax, all goes back in, because right now you don't need the income from it because you've got a job. Your job is an easier way, or your business. It's a faster way, more reliable way at the moment to generate income that you need to live off. Right, so let's call this above the equity line, and let's call this below the equity line. All right, we talked about, Tim said, all right, what about equity? What about equity? Absolutely, equity. Now, how do you get paid using equity? Well, folks, if you didn't already know, and most of you should, if you have access to your equity, and I talk about it all the time, I talk about it called equity lock, or setting your loans, reset your loans, your time frames, your 30-year terms, and you top your loan up to the maximum borrowing capacity that you have, and, create redraws and offsets and, and splits and all sorts of technical things. Talk to your broker about this. Folks, can you use equity as true cash flow, cash in your pocket? The answer is yes, you can. Now, yes, if you take out $1,000, then there's interest payable on that $1,000. Totally, absolutely. If you do it well, and I'll sort of indicate this a bit later, because it's equity cash flow is something that you use later in your, totally. And that's the next piece, right? Tim, you could use it for some cash, and you can use it for another purchase. All right, another purchase, folks, which is fantastic. So it keeps the wheel going, right? Another acquisition. So that's one way to do it. And then the last one I'm going to call, I call this equity arbitrage. I think that's how you spell it anyway, equity arbitrage, which means, and we'll talk about this in a minute, you take some of your equity, you borrow at 7%, you invest, you call it 15%, you minus your costs, you pay a little bit of tax, and you might end up with, 6 or 7% cash flow over and above what your equity is doing over here. Plus you've got growth, as well. Away we go. So yes, residential property can pay. Now, its rental yield, its rent is usually between sort of 4 and 6%, over here. Now, commercial property and other properties can, yield a bit higher. They can yield 6 to 10%. Still with some good tax depreciation too, folks, as we go. Excuse me. Yeah, there you go. Live sneeze. So, equity, I like it. Residential, and this is not about, is residential better than commercial? They're both fantastic. They both work really well. One has a profile that's a little bit more professional, let's say, and consumes a bit more equity and needs more work compared to the other. That's all I'm saying. Right. So how does it work? 4 ways. It pays. And I like that. How do we structure ourselves, folks, as we go along? You guys have seen me talk about the thing called the equity engine. You got residential rents, pays all the time. You could invest in commercial. Yeah, it absolutely, Chris. Residential is much easier to get into. Lending's easier. Borrowing's easier. The whole thing, all that sort of jazz, right? So, commercial property. This is, this is investing in sort of stock market property funds, and we've talked about joint ventures, and talked about investing in other bits and pieces. So, as we go. So let's have a quick look at some calculator stuff, all right? So I like numbers. I like a good spreadsheet. And let's have a bit of a look at how this might work. And I'll just take you through this. Those who are in our coaching and mentoring program, your coach can have access to this, folks, as we go along. So let's have a look. And all right, going to build a portfolio. We start out with our principal place of residence, $850. We've got a bit of equity. Let's start investing. All right. Some simple stuff. And this is kind of saying, hey, if we unlock some equity, starting out, let's say in 2023, we might be able to buy, 1.5 properties. So we're off to the races. We can buy one investment property, and that's a start. That's a start for us to get into the portfolio. And up here we've got, some capital growth. I'll put 5% on there. That's not too ludicrous. And away we go, right? So let's go have a look at, go and buy an investment property. We go off and buy ourselves a nice investment property. We use some dough here. Let's do 175, I think it is. And we use equity. And let's have a look at our property here. Make sure we fill it out. So I've pre-filled a bit of this stuff, but I just want to show the point of having a portfolio and how we can make it work for cash flow. All right. So there's a bunch of things down here, ladies and gents. This thing goes on for 20 years and shows you what might happen. You can adjust some of the numbers. You can go down and have a look at the equity from the home and then the borrowing on the property and so on. You can have a look at all of that stuff, right? So this is our cash flow machine, and away we go. So we go ahead, and over time we go ahead and purchase a couple of properties. We try and sort of stick with purchasing one a year for, let's say, 3 or 4 years. And maybe that's not possible. Maybe you'd space it out, whatever it works for you, and just follow along with what I'm sort of saying here, right? So we buy their second investment property, we buy the third investment property, and we buy the fourth investment property. Let's just say we get 4 plus our owner occupier, and we're having a bit of a look, right? So let's have a look at our portfolio as we go along. So we're, from today, 2027, 28, we've acquired 4 investments and we've got our own home, which is fabulous, right? That's from today. Now, let's fast forward, call it 15 years, and we're going to call that, where do we go here? Trying to do this. Let's go down here, 15 years to 2039 or something like that, folks. And let's have a look at the cash flow. All right. Pre-tax cash flow, before tax, which is pretty nice, 39,000. And depending on how you owning it, depends on how you own these properties, may mean, and that after-tax cash flow would adjust, would be better or worse, probably heaps better, if you weren't earning any money at that point. Obviously, if you weren't earning your 150, if we go back here and have a look at our PPR, thing, we sort of saying, hey, person 1 and person 2 are earning money. Now, if we put that back to 0, right, that would be different. Okay, so we're just going to have a look at the pre-tax cash flow, which is about $40,000. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Perfectly fine. But is it enough, folks? Is 40 grand passive income enough? And I've only put some, conservative numbers in there, ladies and gents. So, might not be. All right. Let's just say let's just say right now, even conservative, I'm going to do this. Let's say we want to get a bit more income. How can we do it? I'm going to put that at 60. And I'm going to put this at 60. Okay. How can we do it? We talked about it before, right? We're at 20. This is a bit challenging. Okay. So we're here. Folks. We've got our 39, our $40,000 cash flow. And what equity do we have? Let's say we did, we followed the instructions from our coaches and, we've got access to, in our redraw facility across our properties, investment properties, and our own home. You could just do it on your investments. No matter. Like, what could we do? Now, this is where this equity arbitrage comes in. This is where this equity is. Folks, you've got access to at 60%, $1.8 million worth of equity. Now, one of the easy ones, folks, depending on how old you are, you could use, let's say, 40 grand worth of equity. And I've got a bit of a rule about how much equity you use. No more than 2% of your total portfolio's value. No more than 2%. 1% is better, but no more than 2%. That's my rule. Okay. And, there's a type of loan out there, which I wouldn't use. I'd set it up myself in this way. But there's a type of loan that is used out there for, older people, retirees. And we wouldn't be like old. We would be locked in and ready to go. Like we would have locked this in ourselves. What's that loan called, folks? Chuck it in the chat for me. It's called a reverse mortgage, right? There's a lot of people who use reverse mortgages. We're just setting up our own reverse mortgage to have access, what's called liquidity, to our own real estate wealth. And imagine, this is only 4 investments. Maybe you had 5, maybe you had 6. Maybe you sell one. Oh, no. Liquidate, get a bit of cash, pay a bit of debt down. There's multiple ways to accelerate your income. I'm into keep it as much as possible, and then what can we do with the stuff? So let's go over here. Let's just do this. Let's go and say, all right, I want to invest some money. I'm going to get access to 500 grand. And I'm going to invest that in 2040. And I'm going to make a bit more return. I'm going to make some money on my portfolio. So let's go back. I'm going to do a good return. And let's go and have a look at 2040, what my income looks like. Voila. See that, folks? Right there, 105. All right. So you went from sort of 40, or if you go pre-tax or whatever it is, I think I should have put it the year before. But anyway, you get the drill, right? You get the drill. We used our equity that we have access to do something cool and get a return on it. Now, where do you get a 15 to 20% return? Well, some of that has a higher risk for sure. I do it all the time. Many of our clients do it all the time. If you know what you're up to, you can do that fairly consistently, and you don't have to take crazy risks along the way. Anyway, there you go. So, did that make sense? We went from passive income from the rental, and we accelerated. We bumped our income using the equity that we had, which was kind of sitting around not doing as much as you want it to. Because what happens often is our values rise and our net return, like our return based on our wealth, actually diminishes, folks. It starts to go down as a percentage of your wealth. Now, is that a bad thing? No. Is it something that you might want to try and, make more efficient? Yes. Okay, that's the drill. There you go. Voila, done. So there you go. Can residential property, pay you a good passive income in the future? Absolutely, it can. Will it come directly from your rents? Often it's a combination of the value of the property that gets you the income that you want. There's other things. There's so many other things. You could add granny flats to your property. You could furnish them. You could short let them. There's so many things. You could debt accelerate, paying them off, and that'd bump your income up. There's all sorts of tips and techniques. Plenty of ways to skin the cat. Number one thing, folks, it's all hot air and sunshine. It's all hot air and sunshine. If you don't bloody buy them in the first place. So let's go back to the basics. If you don't have as many properties as you need, then get on with it. Acquisition time for you. Anyway, there you go. Wealth Coffee Chat done and dusted, folks. Good to see you. Good to see you. Join me tomorrow for another one if you're up for it. You guys know the drill. About 10 past 8. Good to see you. Thanks for joining today. Let's see if that shows up. Done and dusted from me, folks. All right, looks like the internet's playing a little bit slow. We'll see how we go. All right. Adios, team. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Bye for now. See you tomorrow.